is now time for Inside the 10 as I welcome Michael Shamus, Dave Riccio and Andrew Webster. Good to see you all as usual.
Danica.
Likewise, Danica.
All right, well, let's start off. What's the biggest storyline of Grand Final week? I know you guys love a good storyline. What are we looking at?
Kick it off, Webber.
No, you go.
Oh, look, I think...
I've got to come up with
Look, let's think about Parramatta for a moment. And this isn't about putting pressure on Mitchell Moses, but we all know that the Eels... 7 jumper has been cursed ever since Peter Sterling. And Mitch Moses has an opportunity to do what, as I said, so many blue and gold halfbacks have tried to do since Sterlo. And I believe Mitchell Moses is enjoying his best season to date. And if anyone can do it, he can do it. I think Moses' performance will be must-see TV.
It was last week. It wasn't one of his better nights last week, but obviously a lot of things happening in the background, the birth of his first child. But for me, I think that the storyline is going to be around Nathan Cleary and Wanga Blake. With what happened last time they played, he bombed him to death. Nathan Cleary made some mistakes. And we saw on last night that the Rabbitohs struggled as well. So to me, that's going to be the way Parramatta will handle that and what Nathan Cleary does. We know Wanga Blake's a former Panthers player. We've got Regan Campbell-Gillard there. But the bombs, and Joey touched on it yesterday after the game, if Nathan Cleary gets the time to put those bombs away, there's going to be nightmares for Wanga Blake. And not just him, the Parramatta back three, because they're impossible to take.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Brad Arthur makes a change there, if Opacek's fit. We know that Opacek missed with a hamstring
Drop
injury.
Wanga Blake, you think?
Well, he could. He's got Bailey Simonson.
Big
and we
call.
know what Cleary did to Wanga Blake last time round.
Webby?
I've got a negative one and a positive one.
Well, what are we going to get first?
Well, let's go to the positive one. I think how the West was won. The AFL pumped $200 million into the western suburbs of Sydney to try and take over with GWS. And the rise again of Penrith and the rise again of Parramatta, and particularly this year, just shows you that the greatest game of all triumphed, really. And I don't think the war's over, but I think it's a really good story for the heartland of rugby league. We all hear about all these different places that, you know, is the heartland of rugby league. I'm sorry, but I think the western suburbs of Sydney are. And the fact that they're both in it is testament to that.
I don't think the AFL's made a dent out in West. Like, I lived my whole life in the West. I still live out in Western Sydney. I've never seen people walking down the street with a GWS jersey. I know that they've infiltrated the schools and the numbers there of kids playing AFL or Auskick as they call it. Yeah, those numbers are big. But in terms of support out west, having lived in the Parramatta area and now out west near Penrith, it pales into insignificance, the support the AFL has out there. I know the Sydney Swans are something altogether, but we're talking purely Western Sydney, as you mentioned. You can't compare. They have not made an impact out west whatsoever.
What was your other storyline?
The bunker. The referee. Let's just hope that we're not talking about a refereeing decision on Sunday night, although I reckon it's $1.03 that we will be.
Are you saying this on the back of the Jerome Luai decision running behind the player in
That
Charlie
one,
Stone's
the
try?
forward pass. I just think
Crichton.
look, it's a thankless job and they're an easy target. But I don't, like everyone else on these panels, we don't blame the referees or even the video referee. But I just think, you know, it's time for the people who run the game to get serious about a few parts of how the games are officiated.
Who's your grand final referee?
I like Grant Atkins, I really do, because the game seemed to flow under him.
I'm Atkins as well. Yeah, I think he's been most consistent. And to Webby's point, the game does flow. That game went for ages last night. Yeah.
It was a lot of bunker review, just constantly, and you could actually see we were looking around at the crowd at the time, and Freddie even noticed this when we were sitting on the sideline. Is the fans? They're just sitting there, just waiting for it. It's not as fast paced, as exciting as what we were treated to on Friday night.
Yeah, and I think Penrith thought pre-game that if it got into that kind of a groove where there are a lot of stop-starts, it plays into South Sydney's hand. And they don't want that to happen. And Parramatta may be doing the same thing this time around, knowing that the more that the game stops and starts, the more it doesn't suit Penrith, because when it started to get into a rhythm, they just dominated.
Yeah, but this is the thing, though. Isn't that on the referee to try and stop that from happening? To try and get the game into a momentum?
But isn't it the bunker that is
100%. That's what I mean, though. Like the referee...
Ruck speed you're talking about.
Yeah, no, but I just mean the referees have just lost... The referee in the middle has lost so much control of the actual game. And that's the big power shift that needs to go back the other way. And that's what the people who run the game really have to look at in the off-season with a summit or a report.
Just take the earpiece out. Take the earpiece out and do what you want to do.
Exactly. Like you do on air all the time.
No rules here.
Exactly.
All right, well, with the Parramatta Eels into a grand final, does this secure Brad Arthur's future?
Yes, 100%. I think it does. I think they needed to get past Friday night for that to happen, but that's been a tremendous effort from Brad Arthur with all that pressure to get through to the last game of the season. If they don't win it, I don't think it matters. I think it's vindicated for sure.
Didn't you not say last week that anything short is a failure?
No, I said anything short. I said
Of a grand final?
No, I said to reach the grand final.
Okay, maybe I need to read Webby's
Didn't you have
columns
Brad Arthur
closer.
going to the Tigers?
Yeah, he was going.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. That's how much security
didn't
you
say
had.
that.
That's how much safety you had in him at Parramatta.
Do you think Brad Arthur would survive if he didn't get to a prelim?
Yeah, I do. I think they've
it's
done enough.
much more serious questions if they didn't.
Yeah, but they got to where they expected to. And Brad, as you asked, is he safe? I think he was safe regardless. The noise that was around was whether Brad Arthur, and Danny Widler reported at the time that his management had shopped him around, because the talk out of Parramatta was that if things went pear-shaped, that the smart option would be for Brad to look around elsewhere and move on before he was tapped on the shoulder. Now, he's proven everyone wrong, because he's gone and got this team to a grand final, and we're 80 minutes away from a premiership, and he's got 2 more years on his contract. Brad Arthur's going to be there for a couple of years.
What the past few weeks have shown is he's a player's coach. The players are playing for Brad Arthur. And that's about the greatest testament you can get from the dressing room when they're fighting for you. I think the press conference 2 weeks ago, after beating the Raiders, where he basically started a war between anyone outside the dressing room and his playing group, I thought that was a terrific power play by the coach to get his team behind him. And you can see it. You can see that this team are playing for their coach, and that's all that matters.
There's no factions.
And you can tell straight after full time on Friday, the chip's gone on the shoulder straight away. We won't be broken, despite the agendas of other people around the club. It is classic Hasler siege mentality.
I don't think there are factions, though, boys. I don't think there is any sense of unrest amongst the players. I know there were talks about.
No, the factions outside the club.
Yeah, I understand,
The
but
people
there were
around
also
it when they're
suggestions that
agitating.
players weren't
that
happy
story
with
in the
selections as well.
The Nathan Brown
The
selection.
Nathan Brown selection. Now, I know Nathan Brown's he's an Origin player from a couple of years ago, but
His form
Brad's
hasn't been
been
anywhere near
vindicated. He's left him out of the team, and he could have brought him back this week and brought back Bryce Cartwright instead. They're in a grand final, so whether or not there are players there, which I don't think there are, who said that Nathan Brown should be in the team, the coach has got it right. The coach has got it right. He's got him to a grand final, and that's all he can do at this point.
Well, what about for Penrith? They've got a number of players leaving. They've got Coruscant leaving. They've got Kickout leaving. They've also got Cameron Ciraldo leaving as well. Is this a final fling for them?
And also their other assistant, Andrew Webster, headed to the Warriors.
Oh.
You're leaving.
Well done, mate.
Look, I'm irreplaceable at Penrith, really. I just think they've got so many strong structures in place at that club that they're set up for the future. I know Coruscant and Kickout were big losses next
Coruscant's
season.
huge, Webby.
Of course, I know. I
Mitch
understand.
Kenny's the answer.
I understand, but they've still got some pretty quality players in that side. Like, they're a team that I can't see falling backwards because they lose 2 superstars.
Well, I think the team on paper is probably worse than it was last year. You look, Matt Burden and Kurt Capel went out of the team, and they've just replaced them. Isaac Tago, Kickout's gone another level. Like, they just keep finding guys. And you look today, they're in the Jersey Cup Grand Final, and they're in the New South Wales Cup Grand Final. They won the SG Ball Grand Final earlier in the year. They could be the first team in history to win 4 Grand Finals, the top 4 grades. It's incredible. So whether or not they lose, Coruscant is a huge bloke.
Yeah,
He
massive,
is a huge
massive.
bloke.
But they're all young.
Such a breeding
They're
out of
also,
talent. They'll bring
we
someone
sort of
through.
forget just how young they all are. Like, they've still got so much football ahead of them. The only thing that can bring it apart is the cap.
Well,
really.
and that's where the pressure's going to come for 24. Stephen Crichton off contract, Brian To'o off contract. That's where we could see some maybe windows starting to close when the big guns.
The window.
And the
old
problem with that
premiership
is-
window.
That happens with success, boys. The salary cap cops the squeeze.
And the problem with that is, and a lot of teams stay together because they want to try and have success. They've had the success now. By the time Stephen Crichton makes a decision, they may have won 2 grand finals. So then at that point, and like Kickout, did you start looking at your future and think, OK, I've won a premiership, do I go chasing the money? And that's the question for some of these guys now. But we know how entrenched they are into the community. Perhaps they'll take less to stay.
But the good clubs can buck the cap a little bit. You've seen it with Melbourne because they've been so well run. The Roosters because they've been so well run. And now the emergence of Penrith, they're the same.
It's an interesting story because it's quite similar for Parramatta and Penrith because both of them are going to be losing players. And 2 of the best players that we saw over the weekend, Reid Marnie, he's leaving, and Viliami Kickout, he's leaving, and they're both going to the Bulldogs as well. So both teams are in this position where, as you mentioned before, the window could be closing. So it's going to be quite an emotional.
We've heard about the Parramatta players talking about an ambition to finish in the best way possible. And no doubt the two Penrith boys will be thinking the exact same thing this Sunday night, Coruscant and Kickow. The Dogs would be happy though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, Gus would be stoked on his signings for next year. All right, I was going to say, Sunday Footy Show next weekend. Are you out? Are we coming to the ground?
We're wrapping down our boots. Webby's got his boots ready.
Yep.
Sideline conversion. He said he can make it.
Oh, how are the hammies?
Not good.
You should have seen him outside.
You might need to train this
It's
week.
more my brain I'm worried about. That's the issue.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us this morning on the Sunday Footy Show. We'll see you next weekend for Grand Final Day.